Higher Secondary Second Year English Unit 2 Supplementary Life of Pi written by Jan Martel.
I took stock of the lifeboat. It was 3.5 feet deep, 8 feet wide and 26 feet long, exactly. I know because it was printed on one of the side benches in black letters. It also said that the lifeboat was designed to accommodate a maximum of 32 people. Wouldn't that have been merry, sharing it with so many? Instead, we were three and it was awfully crowded. It seems orange is the color of survival because the whole inside of the boat and the tarpaulin and the life jackets and the life buoy and the oars and most every other significant object aboard was orange. Even the plastic, headless whistles were orange.
The words Simpson and Panama were printed on each side of the bow in stark black Roman capitals. I did not grasp all these details and many more right away. They came to my notice with time and as a result of necessity. I would be in the direst of direst straits, facing a bleak future when some small thing, some detail, would transform itself and appear in my mind in a new light. It would no longer be the small thing it was before, but the most important thing in the world, the thing that would save my life. This happened time and again.
How true it is that necessity is the mother of invention. How very true. And what if the supplies were at the bow, beneath the tarpaulin? I turned and crawled back. I felt like a dried-out lizard. I pushed down on the tarpaulin. It was tautly stretched. If I unrolled it, I would give myself access to what supplies might be stored below. But that meant creating an opening onto Richard Parker's den.
There was no question. Thirst pushed me on. I unrolled it a little. Immediately I was rewarded. The bow was like the stern. It had an end bench, and upon it, just a few inches from the stem, a hasp glittered like a diamond. There was the outline of a lid. My heart began to pound. I unrolled the tarpaulin further. I peeked under. The lid was shaped like a rounded out triangle, 3 feet wide and 2 feet deep. At that moment I perceived an orange mass. I jerked my head back, but the orange wasn't moving and did not look right. I looked again. It wasn't a tiger. It was a life jacket. There was a number of life jackets at the back of Richard Parker's den. A shiver went through my body. Between the life jackets, partially, as if through some leaves, I had my first unambiguous, clear-headed glimpse of Richard Parker. It was his haunches I could see, and part of his back, tawny, striped, and simply enormous. He was facing the stern, lying flat on his stomach. He was still, except for the breathing motion of his sides. I blinked in disbelief at how close he was. He was right there, 2 feet beneath me. Stretching, I could have pinched his bottom. And between us, there was nothing but a thin tarpaulin easily got round.
God preserve me. No supplication was ever more passionate yet more gently carried by the breath. I lay absolutely motionless. I had to have water. I brought my hand down and quietly undid the hasp. I pulled on the lid. It opened onto a locker. I looked down between my legs. I thought I would faint for joy. The open locker glistened with shiny new things. Oh, the delight of the manufactured good, the man-made device, the created thing. That moment of material revelation brought an intensity of pleasure, a heady mix of hope, surprise, disbelief, thrill, gratitude, all crushed into one. Unequaled in my life by any Christmas, birthday, wedding, Diwali or other gift-giving occasion. I was positively giddy with happiness.
My eyes immediately fell upon what I was looking for. Whether in a bottle, a tin can, or a carton, water is unmistakably packaged. On this lifeboat, the wine of life was served in pale golden cans that fit nicely in the hand. Drinking water, said the vintage label in black letters. HP. Foods Limited were the vintners. 500 milliliters were the contents. There were stacks of these cans, too many to count at a glance. With a shaking hand I reached down and picked one up. It was cool to the touch and heavy. I shook it. The bubble of air inside made a dull glub 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 sound. I was about to be delivered from my hellish thirst. My pulse raced at the thought. I only had to open the can. I paused. How would I do that? I had a can. Surely I had a can opener. I looked in the locker. There was a great quantity of things. I rummaged about. I was losing patience. Aching expectation had run its fruitful course. I had to drink now, or I would die. I could not find the desired instrument. But there was no time for useless distress. Action was needed. Could I prise it open with my fingernails? I tried. I couldn't. My teeth. It wasn't worth trying. I looked over the gunnel. The tarpaulin hooks. Short, blunt, solid. I kneeled on the bench and leaned over. Holding the can with both my hands, I sharply brought it up against a hook. A good dint. I did it again. Another dint next to the first. By dint of dinting, I managed the trick. A pearl of water appeared. I licked it off. I turned the can and banged the opposite side of the top against the hook to make another hole. I worked like a fiend. I made a larger hole. I sat back on the gunnel. I held the can up to my face. I opened my mouth. I tilted the can. My feelings can perhaps be imagined, but they can hardly be described. To the gurgling beat of my greedy throat, pure, delicious, beautiful, crystalline water flowed into my system. Liquid life, it was. I drained that golden cup to the very last drop, sucking at the hole to catch any remaining moisture. I went, tossed the can overboard and got another one. I opened it the way I had the first and its contents vanished just as quickly. That can sailed overboard too, and I opened the next one. Which, shortly, also ended up in the ocean. Another can was dispatched. I drank 4 cans, 2 liters of that most exquisite of nectars, before I stopped. You might think such a rapid intake of water after prolonged thirst might upset my system. Nonsense. I never felt better in my life. Why? Feel my brow. My forehead was wet with fresh, clean, refreshing perspiration. Everything in me, right down to the pores of my skin, was expressing joy. A sense of well-being quickly overcame me. My mouth became moist and soft. I forgot about the back of my throat. My skin relaxed. My joints moved with greater ease. My heart began to beat like a merry drum and blood started flowing through my veins like cars from a wedding party honking their way through town. Strength and suppleness came back to my muscles. My head became clearer. Truly, I was coming back to life from the dead. It was glorious. I tell you, to be drunk on alcohol is disgraceful, but to be drunk on water is noble and ecstatic, basked in bliss and plenitude for several minutes.
I had water, raisins to last me 124 days. Never had simple arithmetic brought such a smile to my face. It was Richard Parker who calmed me down. It is the irony of the story that the one who scared me witless to start with was the very same who brought me peace, purpose, I dare say even wholeness.
I had to tame him. It was at that moment that I realized this necessity. It was not a question of him or me, but of him and me. We were, literally and figuratively, in the same boat. We would live, or we would die, together. He might be killed in an accident, or he could die shortly of natural causes, but it would be foolish to count on such an eventuality. More likely the worst would happen. The simple passage of time, in which his animal toughness would easily outlast my human frailty. Only if I tamed him could I possibly trick him into dying first, if we had to come to that sorry business. But there's more to it. I will come clean. I will tell you a secret. A part of me was glad about Richard Parker. A part of me did not want Richard Parker to die at all, because if he died I would be left alone with despair, a foe even more formidable than a tiger. If I still had the will to live, it was thanks to Richard Parker. He kept me from thinking too much about my family and my tragic circumstances. He pushed me to go on living. I hated him for it, yet at the same time I was grateful. I am grateful. It's the plain truth. Without Richard Parker, I wouldn't be alive today to tell you my story.
I left Richard Parker in a jungle and waited for a sheep. It pained me to see the animal without even turning his head to have a last glimpse. A sheep did find me, and I am now reunited with my family.
About the author. Jan Martel was born in Spain to French-Canadian parents. Martel's father worked as a diplomat and the family moved to Costa Rica, France, Mexico and Canada during Martel's childhood. He grew up speaking both French and English. Martel studied philosophy at Trent University in Ontario, and later spent a year in India visiting religious sisters and zoos. His first 3 books received little critical or popular attention, but with the publication of Life of Pi in 2001, Martel became internationally famous and he was awarded the Man Booker Prize in 2002.
Thanks for watching.